And good morning. Hi, this is Pete Najarian for the Market Rebellion. This is the take on this Tuesday morning, and it's an amazing start to December because of the fact of what we were leaving behind us in November, which was an extraordinary move in the markets. But yesterday, as a matter of fact, the markets finally got a little bit of fatigue and slowed down just a little bit. A lot of that really having to do with energy, financials, kind of pulling on the market. So we started off the day in negative territory, down a couple 125 points or so early on, down a couple of hundred points. And then for the majority of the day, we were down 300 to 350 points throughout the rest of the session. And a lot of that having to do with financials, which were dragging on the market by with some pretty big numbers pulling to the downside. Throw in the industrials, throw in the energy space, and you get the idea. You start to see that move to the downside. But we did pause there. And we spent the majority of the afternoon trading somewhere between that down 300, down 350. On the other hand, you look over at the NASDAQ was hanging in there for the most part very, very solidly throughout the session. As a matter of fact, started the day up small, stayed up small, finished down a little bit, but nothing dramatic by any stretch of the imagination. So volatility remained fairly tight because of what we were seeing in the market. So trading right around that 21, 22 on the VIX. But what really became something that was interesting was the amount of volume once again. And we continue to talk about it on that half day last Friday. We were looking at volumes of 25 million on a half day. Now that's an extreme number. Now, yesterday, how about 36.5 million contracts trading yesterday? Again, the volumes just continue to be extremely strong. November was an extremely strong month, but I'll tell you, the volumes in November really were, again, extraordinary because we haven't seen volumes like this, except for the fact that 2020, we just continue to see month after month after month, but November certainly does stand out for me. So where was some of the biggest volumes? Well, Apple yesterday, again, one of the leaders that was trading almost 2.25 million contracts yesterday. Tesla, a little over 1 million contracts. We had AMD just under 1 million contracts, and Palantir once again. Now, this is a company that's just really started, just kicking things off, and yet they're trading incredible volumes. This is the second day in a row I'm pointing this out because we're looking at the volume there, almost 760,000 contracts. So another busy day there as well. So we did have some strength. We had some strength in Apple, in Intel, in AMD, Xilinx, Cuervo. You look across Skyworks. So in other words, you're looking at the SMH, and the SMH had a pretty decent day yesterday. It was up about 1%. We had Autodesk, we had Take-Two, some of those different other companies as well, Moderna, which just continues to be one of these names that really has captured people because we've talked about Pfizer and we've talked about the vaccines. We've talked about AstraZeneca and the vaccines. Moderna, on the other hand, is a name that just continues to be a name moving to the upside. Yesterday, up about 20+% yesterday again. So this is a name that just seems to day after day continue to make these moves to the upside. So biotech, yeah, biotech was another strength. Matter of fact, new highs again, closed very close to those highs. The SMH closed on those highs. So you look across and you see certain parts of the marketplace, certainly there are pockets of weakness, and we've seen some of the strengths. So on the weakness side, I talked about the financials. Well, we did get that downgrade yesterday from Morgan Stanley across many different names, double downgrades included, but Goldman Sachs downgraded, JP Morgan on a double downgrade, you had Bank of America on a double downgrade. When you look across, you look at Wells Fargo and Citi and all those names getting hit to the downside, down a couple of percent yesterday on the financials. Add to that the industrials with Boeing and Dow and Caterpillar and 3M all moving to the downside as well. So that's pulling on the market certainly. And materials. Now, materials have been on an absolute sprint to the upside. They've been great. They've been a lot like what we've talked about when we talked about some of the moves in energy. But the materials space, we continue to see unusual option activity there as well. And it just seemed to take a little bit of a pause yesterday. Nothing dramatic, down maybe 1% on the XLB. So not a really a hefty move to the downside by any means. But again, energy, especially those beta names, you know, they work to the upside in a big way. On the downside, you still get that big movement. As a matter of fact, down more than 7% yesterday, pulling on energy to the downside. You had EOG, you had Diamondback, you had Pioneer, you had ConocoPhillips, throw in Apache, throw in Concho, throw in Phillips 66 and Hess and Marathon Oil. You get the idea. All of those names yesterday have been names that have been moving to the upside in a big way. Well, yesterday, those were pulling back at a pretty significant pace as well, down 7% or more across the board. So We closed the books on a November, which is a multi-decade move for November. As a matter of fact, you look at the Dow, that was up nearly 12%. And look over at the NASDAQ, that was up almost 11%. So some pretty extreme moves in those major indices to the upside. Now, today, what are we looking at? Well, we're kicking off December in a pretty good, bold, strong way. We're looking at markets that pre-market up about 300 points on the Dow, up about 100 points on the NASDAQ, and about a 1% move on the S&P. That has continued. As a matter of fact, that's starting to grow a little bit as we get into this first hour of the day. And we're looking over at the Dow, that's up about 350. Look over at the NASDAQ, that's up about 1.25. So pretty strong moves across the board. Gold, silver, they're moving to the upside, not so much necessarily in crude, but on the other hand, we are seeing a big move in energy once again. And again, it's those beta names that are really fueling the energy move to the upside. Holly Frontier, National Oilwell Varco, Marathon, Phillips 66, those names all moving to the upside. Add in names like ExxonMobil, Chevron, you get the idea. Plus add BP up 5%. So even the big integrated names having a very, very solid start to today. Also look over at the NASDAQ, a lot of what's powering the NASDAQ right now. We've talked about Tesla, we've talked about the entrance into the S&P, and they've talked about that for a while. It looks like December 21st, I believe, is the date. So Tesla moving to the upside, Micron, where we've seen nothing but unusual option activity for a long period of time. And I highlighted this just a week or two ago on the halftime report, multiple different, not just one strike, but multiple different strikes where we were seeing buying to the upside in Micron. So the semiconductors remain strong. NXPI, you look over at Intel pushing up back towards that $50 level. PayPal having another nice day, had some unusual option activity in there yesterday. We heard some of the different panelists on the halftime report talking about how they just recently jumped back into PayPal. I did as well. We had that unusual option activity yesterday. It wasn't one of the names that I highlighted, but we did have it here at Market Rebellion. And so that was one of those names. I look for those opportunities. I bought PayPal not too long ago, about a week or two ago. That was an unusual option activity for the halftime report. That moved already. That already gave me what I was looking for. I took that position off. And now, once again, I'm in PayPal, although I'll probably be trimming because I'm seeing a pretty nice, significant move to the upside today. Take a look at the volatility index. Will we break through 20? I've been talking about this for a while now, how just a month, in the last month, we actually closed above 40. We've cut that level in half now. And here we are at 20, and we're looking like we are positioned to potentially start to maybe break through that 20 level. Gives a lot more opportunity. When you've got a low VIX, gives you a lot of opportunities in the option world. So if you take a look at what John and I are talking about day in and day out, the unusual option activity, as a matter of fact, in this first hour, I was adding it up, we had well over 15 unusual option activities already hitting on our site. So it's definitely an option player's lifestyle. And as a matter of fact, when we talk about this, and I brought up the 36.5 million contracts in terms of the volume, the derivatives market, that is where the growth is. That is where we are seeing this incredible amount of opportunity. And as the implied volatilities start to bring it back down, makes it a little bit easier and a little bit more palatable to be able to try to position when you've got lower implied volatilities. That means you're paying less in terms of some of those premiums. So strengths early on, where are we seeing it? Well, I mentioned energy, absolutely energy moving to the upside. Industrials as well, a nice solid move to the upside, up about 1.5%. Financials on a nice rebound. We talked about yesterday, down about 2%. Today, we're back up about 2%. Materials also up about 2%. So when I'm looking at the unusual option activity for today, I mentioned that we have about 15 hits already in the first hour. Well, on top of that, what really stands out for me is we are seeing even more in what I like to call the rock space or the materials area. So take a look at Vale, that's hitting again. Cemex also hitting again. Those are two names that hit just yesterday. Matter of fact, Vale's hit on multiple days, even going back into last week. And so we are continuing to see some of that upside paper start to flow into some of those names. But that's not the unusual that I wanted to focus on today. The unusual I wanted to focus on was in Facebook. Now, this is a name that we've talked about time and time again. It has been unbelievably resilient, despite the fact that oftentimes there's a lot of negativity out there. And obviously we are seeing Zuck having to get up in front, and he seems like he's in Washington, D.C., although it's been virtual more often than he's been able to be the CEO. He's still the CEO, guys. He's done an amazing job building and continuing to build on this company. And as I've said many times, he's an assassin. He goes in, he tries to make decisions to buy somebody. They don't want to do it. All right, they're going to build it, or they'll do something else to attack and win. And that's exactly what Facebook has been doing. You look across marketplace, you look at Instagram, you look at all the different areas, and they are jumping into the crypto space as well, as we've been talking about for a while now, or they've been talking about for a while now. So with the stock trading about 284, we see a buyer of 9,900 of Friday's expiring. So December 4th, Friday's expiring, 9,900 of the 285s. Those are only $1 out of the money right now. Stocks trading 284. These are the 285s. They started at $1.80. They got paid all the way up to $4 on the 9,900 they bought. Also, on top of that, this was not a spread. They were also buying the 87.5s, the 287.5 calls, 9,000 of those trading as well. So aggressively positioning for Facebook to make another move to the upside, because it's making a really nice move today, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to get real quick into a couple of questions, and then we're going to have to run. Unfortunately, we got a lot of things on tap today. My wife and I have huge plans. Matter of fact, part of our plans, well, I'll give it to you after I get some questions. Hey, Pete, I bought these microns, the December 18th expiring, the 65 calls 2 weeks ago, sold 50% of the position in the morning when it doubled. Are you still in these options? I'm doing exactly what you're doing, because I just did trim some of my micron position. Why did I do that? Because of exactly what you're talking about. We talk about discipline all the time. That's what keeps a trader in the markets and gives you opportunities. So when you get moves, you have to have some sort of a exit strategy, whatever that might be. Everybody might have a different strategy, but you've got to have a strategy to stick to it. So yes, I am trimming as well right now into this move in Micron. It's been a great, fantastic move. The options were definitely a great indicator of that move, but that doesn't mean you have to sell everything. If you choose to, you can actually hold on to some. That's what I'm doing, and it sounds like that's what you're doing as well. So congratulations, well done, and great job with that, with the discipline as well. Hey, Pete, your take on Sabre, please. Thank you for your commitment to the event. So Sabre, yeah, we had some unusual option activity in there just last week. I am long those calls. I have done nothing with them so far, but I continue to like what we are seeing in the unusual option space. We continue to see separate areas, but we have consistently seen materials. We've consistently seen the semiconductor space. So there are areas where we are seeing more and more, and those are the areas that I find myself focusing on a little bit more aggressively, because we've seen such a move into certain space, including energy. Oh my goodness. The energy space has been absolutely on fire, and we talk about that all the time, and I've talked about it here on The Take on multiple occasions. The XLF 30s, I sold half. Should you stay in? I got to tell you something that's interesting, because I just took that position off. I usually would have just sold half, but made a move, and made a move very rapidly. And quite frankly, part of the reason for me exiting is when I'm in an ETF and I get a really strong, powerful move, a lot of the time I just want to take that off. I really would rather be in individual names. So for instance, I'm already in Bank of America, I'm in Barclays, I'm in JP Morgan, I'm in Capital One. I'm in a lot of these various names, either in stock or in options. In stock in most of those names, actually, and I'm selling premium against those names and collecting dividends. But you know, when you're looking at some of these ETFs, I'm not a huge fan. I would rather trade the individual names, just because you get a little bit more bang for your buck oftentimes. But when you get a fast move like we did out of this XLF, it's one of those positions where I'm already out. So I am out. I'm not just 50% out, I'm completely out, just to give you a heads up. Hey, Pete, any thoughts on the Twinkie? So that was interesting, because when we had that unusual option activity, I had never seen that hit before. So that's Hostess. It really is Twinkies. So it's interesting. So I own these calls. I have not trimmed them. I have not sold them. But when we did have that call buying, and we've got a little bit of time, and I see that you're talking about December 15th, still a little bit of time, and it's starting to crunch down. We've got a couple of weeks, but still a little bit of time on our side. View on AA buy. So yesterday we had some unusual option activity in Alcoa. That just adds to the rock stocks that we're talking about. We talk about U.S. Steel, talk about Alcoa, talk about Vale. We talk about a lot of different names, whether they're iron ore or steel or whatever they may be. But in the material space, Alcoa is definitely one of those. I did not buy those calls yesterday. So if you did, best of luck. Hopefully those work. I love seeing that. But it just seemed like I found other areas where I was finding a little bit what I determined to be a little bit better bang for my buck there. Let's see, I'll give you one more. How about AMD? How about AMD? So we had that incredible unusual option activity in there. That's a stock that a while back somebody said, asked me a question about this when I had AMD unusual option activity. I believe it was on the halftime report. And somebody said, well, where do you think it's really going? I said, I think it's going to 100. I still stand by that. I still think it's going to 100, especially based upon what the options activity has been indicating most recently, and some of those upside call buying that we are seeing, and the amount of premium that people are paying for some of those strikes tells me that there is belief out there as well that this is a $100 stock at some point in the not too distant future. So I believe in that as well. Folks, I got to run. I hope you have a great day of trading, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on The Take. I got a nice big afternoon. We're going to be driving. So we're going to be driving, my wife and I. We got a really fun plans. We're going to be going south very soon. We're leaving Nebraska, and we'll be updating you as we go. Have a great morning.